Well, Pastor Aaron, they're just two kind words, really. I mean, I don't deserve that, but I appreciate it, and I'll say likewise. We had the privilege of getting to know Aaron and Tracy while they were attending Bethany Bible College, which is now Kingswood University, and I was an administrator there, and they were involved in music as well at Sussex Wesleyan Church, where we attended, and I think it was Crystal. She was just like this, right? And now they're all grown up. Crystal, Jamie, yeah, there's Jamie, and Rachel, right? So we had the privilege of being in their home last evening to have supper, and they make an awesome lasagna. In case you're ever interested in some kind of lasagna, they make an excellent lasagna. And just great host, and so we enjoyed our time together and certainly enjoyed worshiping with you here this morning. Great music, and just sense God's Spirit in a real positive and fresh way here this morning. And excited for what God is going to do in your midst in the days ahead. As you seek His will, as you seek His direction. That's always the best way, isn't it? I've often found when I've tried to go my own way, that never worked out that well. But when we follow God's direction, His will, His voice, then it's all good. Because God is good, isn't He? All the time. So anyway, it's great to be here this morning with you. That video, it moves me every time I see it. And I've seen it a number of times. And it's just one of those things that it's very emotional. And to think of how Jennifer, where she was, and how the compassion and generosity of this couple completely changed her life. And it doesn't matter how many times I view it. I just feel that way about it. And there are hundreds of stories, similar stories I can share with you this morning. But of course that's not possible. So I'll share briefly about a young man who is now attending Kingswood University in Sussex, New Brunswick, in his 4th year of ministerial training. His name is Luciano Latouche, and some may have already met him somewhere, I'm not sure. From the island of Haiti, and he became a compassion-sponsored child at the age of 3 and remained in the program for 17 years. And he's a gifted musician, and his heart's desire is to return to Haiti and present the gospel to his own people there when he graduates. This past year, Luciano traveled with us to various churches on a number of occasions and shared his life testimony. And I wish he could have been here with us this morning, but due to school responsibilities and other things that he's engaged with, that's just not possible for him to travel all that much on the weekends. Well, through the ministry of compassion, both Jennifer and Luciano, they really have become world changers. And that's what happens. That's what God does, as Jennifer testified. God does the impossible. He performs the miracles when things are given to Him. And He takes them and uses them for His glory. I could probably stop here, and you would have a pretty good understanding of what the ministry of compassion is all about. But I can't do that. I'd probably get fired for one thing if I did that. But I do have some things I'd like to share with you. I'm not going to be long, but if you would just give me your attention for a few more moments, that would be great. A few years back, Marty and I began the compassion journey by sponsoring 2 beautiful children, a young girl named Stephanie in the Dominican Republic, and a boy named John who lives in Peru. I can't express to you in words the joy in knowing that these 2 beautiful children, along with nearly 2 million others around the world, are being cared for by people who love them and tell them on a daily basis, you are special in God's sight, and yes, your dreams can become true. I have to say, sponsoring these 2 precious children continues to be one of the greatest investments we have ever made with the resources God has entrusted to us. And my only regret, really, is that we did start sooner. We waited quite a while, and it's interesting. We were presented with this ministry on different occasions, and we would often think, well, that would be a good thing to do, but someone else will do that, or there's other people that have more resources, they'll look after those things. And it wasn't until just maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that we both at the same time, we weren't even sitting together in the service. we both realized that this is the time that we need to step forward and do that. And we certainly don't regret that in any way. We finally realized it was our responsibility to care for those living in extreme poverty, not the church or some other parachurch organization or child relief organizations engaging around the world. It's our responsibility. Several years ago, we had the awesome privilege of visiting Stephanie while on a compassion-sponsored trip to the Dominican Republic. And time does not allow me, of course, to go into much detail about that trip this morning. But I can say without reservation, it truly was a life-changing encounter. We visited several centers that were in the city of Santo Domingo, a city of nearly 5 million people. And the largest percentage of that would be slums. And we visited in the homes of some of the sponsored children that were truly in the slums. And I can't even begin to explain to you what that was like with the poverty that existed there. But you know, the greatest joy was spending time with Stephanie and her mother. They lived about an hour outside of the city, and they brought them in. There were several of us there who had sponsored children in the Dominican Republic, and they brought those children into us. And we had the opportunity to spend time together. And Stephanie was only, was she 4, just 3, between 3 and 4. And she'd never been into the city before. And I remember walking into this little ice cream parlor with her, Marty and I and her mother. And she was scared to death. I go, what is wrong? She was scared of the fountain. She'd never seen a fountain before in her life. And she was scared of the fountain. We had ice cream. Then later we all gathered together and had pizza and Coca-Cola. I mean, we look at that stuff now and say pizza and Coca-Cola anytime you want. Well, that's true, you can. But you can't there. And then we had a chance to give her some gifts that we brought. And just to engage with a little girl that we sponsor on a monthly basis. We have a chance to correspond through letters. So how does compassion work, and why does it exist? Well, to state it briefly, compassion works through nearly 7,000 local churches in 25 countries and seeks to develop children in all the different aspects of their lives, their minds, bodies, and relationships, while discovering God's love for them in the gospel of Jesus Christ. A sponsored child will hear the good news that God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, so that whosoever believes in Him would not perish, but have everlasting life. You see, this is the heart of Compassion's ministry, not only to do good works in providing food, education, and medical assistance, but to make passionate disciples of Jesus Christ. And I believe this is God's eternal solution for those living in extreme poverty. In Revelation 7:16-17, John tells of a great multitude of believers worshiping together in robes, cleansed in the blood of the Lamb. And it said of them, never again will they hunger, never again will they thirst. The sun will not beat upon them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be the shepherd. He will lead them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There is coming a day when poverty will finally and fully end. This is the eternal hope for those now living in poverty around the world. Compassion works hard each day to meet the physical needs of nearly 2 billion children, but most importantly, spread the hope of eternal life. And that is the big difference with Compassion compared to some other organizations that do great work in providing for the physical needs. Compassion puts a great emphasis on spreading the hope of eternal life, which is the eternal solution to poverty. A few years ago, I did some research on poverty and discovered that nearly 400 million children were living in poverty around the world. A staggering statistic when you think of that, 400 million children. So how do we as Christ followers respond to this need, or is it even our responsibility? Well, in trying to answer this question, I found many scriptures in the Bible that speak about the poor, in which God commands us to care for them in their distress. In Proverbs 31, we read, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. Then in Hebrews 13, and do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices God is pleased. And in Zechariah chapter 7, we're told, and the word of the Lord came again to Zechariah. This is what the Lord Almighty says: administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the alien or the poor. And from reading these scriptures, it's very clear to me at least that caring for the poor is an important part of the Christian life and certainly reflects the heart of Jesus. Are we not to follow his example as believers? We find in Scripture that Jesus especially cared for the children. In Mark 10, Jesus says to his disciples, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." I don't know about you this morning, but I often become overwhelmed when I think of poverty. It's easy to give up and say there's nothing really I can do that will make a difference. Nothing ever changes. But here's a fact that will hopefully encourage you to take action. Between 2000 and 2015, the number of people living in poverty was cut in half. That means over 1 billion people were lifted out of extreme poverty. That's an amazing statistic, isn't it? And I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought we're not making any progress whatsoever. We're not getting anywhere. Nothing's ever really changing. But it is changing. So you see, a difference can be made if we each do our part. If we each do our part. As I personally struggled with poverty and what my role should be, my thoughts were drawn to Matthew chapter 14, where Jesus feeds the 5,000. I believe Jesus used this story to help change the way we think about poverty. And the underwhelming resources in the face of overwhelming challenges. And when I think of poverty, I see lots of challenges and limited resources. You see, the disciples saw only a very large problem. A huge crowd had followed Jesus on foot to the towns. And now evening was fast approaching, if you remember the story. Being a remote place, the disciples quickly became overwhelmed and said to Jesus, "Send the people back to their homes and villages to buy food." Well, if you remember the story, Jesus was not all that thrilled with sending the people home. He replies to the disciples rather emphatically, "They do not need to go home. You give them something to eat." You see, Jesus looked at the exact same situation. And what did he see? He saw a huge opportunity. And when we see poverty and sickness, hunger and famine, cruelty and abuse, do we see them as problems, or do we, like Jesus, filled with compassion, see their human faces and begin to respond as a shepherd to his sheep? You see, Jesus did not ask the disciples to do the impossible. He asked only that they bring to him what they had available. And Jesus took the 5 loaves, if you remember the story, and the 2 fish that the disciples had brought him, gave thanks, and what, 5,000 men, not including women and children, were fed that day. With how many baskets left over? 12 basketfuls left over. A great example of what God can do when we give him what we have available, or what he has entrusted to us. Richard Stearns, in his book, A Hole in Our Gospel, says this: God never asks us to give what we do not have, but he cannot use what we will not give. So today I want to invite you to sponsor a child of your own. You knew this was coming, didn't you? A boy or a girl whose story you can personally change through your love, through your prayers, through your letters, through your support. Compassion sponsorship programs give children safe places to play and laugh, opportunities to get an education, and to see a doctor when they're sick, and learn about God's incredible love for them in Jesus Christ. And just a quick little caveat here. While we were in the Dominican Republic, we visited a home of There were 2 sponsored children in that home. And we went with the pastor at that particular center, at the church that was the center for compassion in that area. And he took us down to this little part of the village and into this home. And the grandmother was there with 7 children. And we soon discovered that both parents were gone. The mother had passed away and the father had just taken off. And so the grandmother was looking after these 7 children. That's why they took 2 out of 1 family. And while we were there, my wife Marty, who's a nurse, noticed a sore on her foot and mentioned to the pastor after that, that looks pretty serious, maybe something we need to look at. And so the doctor was going to get, the pastor was going to get the doctor to come look at that. So it's more than just the child that benefits from the sponsor. It's the family that gets looked after as well. And the other incredible thing about that, I still remember that. I still remember her voice. The pastor prayed for her and her family. But when he was done, she asked, in her language, Creole, "Can we pray for you?" And she prayed for us. And I couldn't understand it, but I could feel it. You could feel it. And I still see that scene to this day. And it was a tremendous moment. In the midst of all her struggles and all her trials, she wanted to pray for us. So it was a powerful moment, for sure, in that situation. Here's an amazing statistic. Nearly 85% of children sponsored through compassion become Christians. Nearly 85%. What an evangelistic tool when you think of it. And children, they're at the right age for that, aren't they? And this very fact is what captured our hearts, really, for the work of compassion. Not just the fact that the 85%, but the fact that the whole focus on Christ and getting these kids to understand the love of God and to accept Him as a Savior is a very, very important factor in what they do. It doesn't take a lot to make a difference. For $41 per month, a child's life can be changed forever. And not everybody can go on a short-term mission trip. Not everybody can adopt a child. But most here today can probably sponsor a child that brings eternal rewards. Maybe you're wondering how this $41 is distributed. That's a question that is always asked, and it's a good question. Well, in the last fiscal year, 85.3% of funds, 85.3%, were used for program activities benefiting the children we serve. That's an extremely high percentage of dollars that go, if you spend them, $41 a month, that goes to the child. And as a result, Compassion is now one of the largest and most effective child development ministries in the world. And we all know we can't totally change the reality of poverty around the world. But we can make a difference, one child at a time. So can I challenge you this morning? Can I challenge you to make that difference? And we look at Jennifer's life, we look at Luciano's life, and there's one child, and who knows what God's going to do through their lives before it's all said and done. The impact of that, how that's going to be spread out. And that's what God does when we give Him a little. He can do a lot with it and make some major changes in people's lives. I'm going to close. Before I do this last little thing, I am going to say that it's always great to have Marty with me. And she has a tremendous heart for the work of compassion. Men aren't that good with details, so she's kind of the detail person. So when you stop by the table, she can help you with that more effectively than I can. We just kind of tend not to read instructions and all that stuff, right? So she's good at that. So I appreciate her being here with me this morning and helping out with this. So I just want to end with this brief illustration. Early one morning, a man was walking along a beach after a fierce storm and encountered thousands of starfish washed up on the shore with the wind and the waves. And upon seeing this, he immediately bent down and he picked up these starfish one at a time and he cast them back into the sea. Now another man who happened to be observing this shouted out, "What are you doing?" And the man replies, "I'm saving the starfish." But don't you see, man, there are tens of thousands of them. There's nothing you can do that will make a difference. Well, the old gentleman, he didn't answer him. He just bent down, he picked up another starfish, and he cast it back in the water. And then he turned and he smiled at the stranger and he looked him straight in the eye and said, "It made a difference to that." And I think that's how we have to think whenever we're doing any of these kind of things. We're giving and we're thinking about poverty and the poor. It's, hey, I can make a difference in a life. And that's what's important. Thank you very much for listening. God bless. Love to have you stop by. We've got some child packs I've got right here. They look like this. There's some on the table, different countries. This little girl here is Zella, and she's from the Philippines. She's 2 years old. And I'll have that back here as well. Please don't walk out with one of these unless you talk to us, because there's some information we need to fill out on these. But you can certainly pick one up and look at it, no obligation. We even have form there that if you feel like you do this now, you like to do it later. But just stop by and chat with us, and God bless. And as you come to mind, we'll certainly be praying for you here. And God will continue to show you the way, and things will be as God wants them, and we'll see some great rewards here. And the field will be right for you to do some